So let's come to these rules here that we were talking about in previous videos. This is addition rules. Okay, so for addition rules, that means you are adding two positive numbers. Okay, so the first number is positive, the other one is positive. You're trying to add them up, you're going to end up with a positive number. All right, so if both numbers are negative numbers, then you want to add them up. The number that you're going to get, the result that you're going to get is also going to be a negative number. Okay, basically that's how it works. Now, in case where the first number is positive, the second number is negative, or the first one is negative, the second one is positive because, it works at the same time, the same way, you have to subtract the two numbers and keep the sign of the highest number. Subtract the two numbers and keep the sign of the highest number. So basically, this is what we call the addition rules in short, so that we are able to, work out these problems that we have here. So now let's take the first one, negative 15 plus negative 4. So when you have parentheses around them, the way we put it, in the rules there, what's going to happen? So we basically going to remove the parentheses first, okay? So to remove the parentheses, this means we have negative 15, all right? And then because this is a positive and inside is negative, whenever you have positive outside, what's going to happen? The negative sign stays, okay? So the positive sign outside does not impact the sign of the number inside the parentheses, okay? Like I said before in the previous video, sometimes we can just consider the fact that we have an invisible one in front of the parentheses. So because we have an invisible one in front of the parentheses, that means multiplication because there's no sign in between. So it's like you're multiplying a positive 1 by negative 4, which is going to give us a negative 4. Okay, so we can also keep it that way. Okay, so whenever we're going to deal with multiplication rule, we will see that as well. So what we're going to do is what? So negative 15, negative 4, sorry. So both numbers carry the same sign. So what do we have to do? We add or we keep the sign. So that's what you need to keep in mind. If both numbers have positive signs, you add and you keep the positive sign. If both numbers have the negative signs, you have to keep and also keep the negative sign. So in this case, we're talking in terms of signs. So negative 15, negative 4. So it's going to give us negative 19. And then you are finished. Okay? Now, if we take, we go here first before we deal with the fractions, which are more interesting. So now we have negative 8 plus negative 8. So what's going to happen? So negative 8 again, this one is a positive sign in front of the parentheses. So it's not going to impact the sign of the number inside the parentheses. So 8 is going to come out with the negative sign still. Okay? So now, again, we have two numbers that carry the same signs, negative signs here. So what's going to happen is going to stay negative 16. Okay? Now we go with the third question here. Negative 3 minus negative 5. So now in this case, what's going to happen? We got to remove the parentheses again. But yet we have a subtraction sign in front of the negative 5 over here. So if you still want to, we can place right in the invisible one, and then the invisible one and the parentheses, that's multiplication between because there's nothing in there. And then you can be able now to multiply. Negative by negative is a positive. That's, a rule that you guys already know, but we're going to work on them in the next videos. So this is going to give us negative 3 and then positive 5. So the negative sign here, we change the one inside the parentheses to the opposite sign. So basically that's what the negative sign does right in front of the parentheses. It will always change the sign of whatever you have inside the parentheses to the opposite sign. So if it's a negative 5, it becomes positive 5. If it were to be positive 5, it's going to become negative 5 in that case. Okay? But here we are, negative 3 plus 5. So again, negative and plus. So one is negative, the other is a positive number. So what do? Again, we subtract first. So that means we subtract 3 from 5. we always subtract the smallest number from the largest number to make our lives a lot easier. So 3, you take away 3 from 5, you get 2. And then what's the sign of the highest number? It's a positive 5. Remember, the sign of the number is right in front of the number. That's why 3 has a negative sign in front of it, and 5 has a positive sign in front of it. So positive 2, because the sign of the highest number is a positive. All right? So that's for the question number 3. Now, if we have question number 4 here, we have 17 over 18 plus negative 5 over 6. So what's going to happen? So we still going to have to try to remove the parentheses. And what does a positive sign do, into what we have inside the parentheses? The positive sign actually does not change anything. Okay? So the positive sign doesn't change anything, but yet the negative sign, we change whatever you have inside the parentheses to the opposite sign. 2 things you need to keep in mind. Your life is safe all the time. When it comes to this, at least this. So the positive sign is not going to change anything. But like we said also before, some people can think in this term. Okay, we still put our invisible one here. A positive times a negative is what? Is a negative. So it's going to be negative 5 over 6. All right? So here we are. We got a fraction here, 2 fractions to deal with here. So what we're going to do, we got to find the lowest common denominator. So in this case, between 18 and 6, which one would be the highest number so that, the lowest number so that that number can divide 18 and 6 evenly? It's going to be 18 in this case, okay? Because 18 can divide 18 one time and 18 can divide 6 three times, okay? So 18 is going to be our lowest common denominator, ladies and gentlemen. And then once we have our lowest common denominator, what's going to happen? Then we're going to have to make adjustments, whatever needed. In this case, 18 was the original denominator for the first fraction, and then we still have 18, so that nothing changed. Or sometimes we can say 18 divided by 18 is 1, so we can multiply 17 by 1, okay? We can always do that. All right? And then when you come to the second fraction here, we went from 6 to get 18. So 18 divided by 6 is what? 3. So that means we multiply 5 by 3. So 17 times 1 is what? Is 17. Minus what is 5 times 3? 15. And then don't forget that you still have 18 there. So to finish with, 17 minus 15 is what? Is 2. So it's 2 over 18. We could have been said that we are done, but in this case, we still have to do what? Reduce. Because anytime you can reduce your fraction, ladies and gentlemen, you have to do it. Okay, you have to do it. So 2 can go into 2. 2 can divide 2 one time. And then 2 can go into 18 9 times. So you end up with 1 over 9, which is going to be your final answer in this case. So now we go to this one here, last but not least. So now we got to get rid of the parentheses. But we said if we have a subtraction sign in front of the parentheses, it will always change what you have inside to the opposite sign. What's the sign of half inside? It's a positive because there's no sign. So the negative sign, we change it to a negative. Are you with me, ladies and gentlemen? So this will give us negative 1 over 2. Okay? So when we get here, we got to find the lowest common denominator, which is going to be what in this case? 22, because 22 can divide 22 one time and 22 can divide 2 11 times. So 22 over here, okay? And then, like we did for the previous problem here, this one we stay the same thing because it's going to be 9 times 1, all right? And then 2 goes into 22 11 times, so it's going to be 1 times 11. Because you always got to make that adjustment. If you don't make the adjustment, that means you just changed your original problem. So 22 is our lowest common denominator. And then we have 19 minus 11. Okay, 11 times 1 is 11. So 19 minus 11 is what? 8. It's 8 over 22. And then can we reduce these two? Yes, because 2 can divide into 8 evenly and 2 can divide into 22 evenly. So 2 goes into 8 4 times and then 11 times at the bottom. So we end up with 4 over 11. So ladies and gentlemen, you can go back and work on these problems. Now, there will be a whole section on lowest common denominator, so don't worry, but follow this one. So far, this is nothing yet, but we're going to have a whole session on that.